you're live right now.
Okay. We're live.
Are we? You sure? Because it doesn't say live. It usually pops up in the top of the screen that says we're live.
It's a little delayed.
We'll give it a moment. We're good? Yeah. All righty. Welcome everyone to our electronic library committee meeting. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Regional Council is practicing physical distancing, and all the councillors who are members of this committee are participating electronically. Councillors, if at any time you want to speak to a matter, please raise your hand and identify yourself. Please keep your devices muted until called upon to speak so that we can avoid feedback from our devices. And I want to welcome the chair this morning. She has arrived. I will now call on Stevie to do a roll call.
Councillor Armstrong?
Here.
Councillor Nowak?
Here.
Councillor Foxton?
Present.
Councillor Shantz?
Here.
Chair Redmond?
Here.
Everyone is present.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, let's move on to the agenda items listed. And is there the presentation for the Smart Waterloo region? Is she present yet, Helen?
No, I think we'll just wait until Matthew shows up, and if he doesn't make it for this one, we can always have him at the next one.
Okay. So let's start then with reports. 4.1. Carol, our financial analyst, will introduce this report.
Okay, I'll share my screen. Okay, so basically the recommendation is that the region allocate the library surplus, which is about $490,000, to the library capital reserve. So let's see here. So there was a surplus of $490,000. A large part of that is related to temporary vacancies and salaries and benefits, which is about $502,000. And offsetting part of that, there was about $76,000 increased costs, which a lot of them were janitorial and cleaning supplies related to COVID and some facility maintenance, and largely offset by savings in printing, programming, travel, and conference. And so we've got a few attachments to the report. Let's go down to the end. So this again basically just shows what I was talking about. We've got the compensation savings of $502,000. We have a shortage in revenue. A lot of that was expected programming fees and fines that we didn't collect. And then a lot of the other expenses basically offset each other. We had some additional expenses for janitorial and then some savings in other areas that were already mentioned. So that's the operating budget, which comes to the $490,000. And then there's a little summary of the capital budget. We had a budget of $103,000. We only spent $27,000 of the capital budget related to the holdings, which had a budget from capital of $38,000. The other projects weren't spent at all. And we also just gave a little summary here of the Taylor bequest over various years. So you can see in 2020, basically we didn't spend any money and nothing was budgeted. So we started the year with 108,000. We have interest of 2,000, which comes to 110,000 at the end of the year.
Is that it, Carol?
Yeah, that's all.
Perfect. Any questions? Mayor Shantz.
Thanks. Just a question about the debt outstanding on the admin building. Can you tell me what that balance is, please?
I'm not sure offhand, but I think we've had the debt for 2 years. So there's probably another 8 years to go, but I'm not sure what the balance is, to be honest.
Okay.
So we can find that out for you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Councillor Foxton?
Thank you. So if we could find that out, is it a possibility to take some of that reserve and put the surplus and put it towards the debt? Now, I know in some cases you're not allowed to bring down debt. You have to pay it off as it goes. So just wanted to clarify.
I'll take that one. And I've asked the same question before, and the answer is no on this one. Is that it's laid out. It's part of a bigger envelope, so we're having to pay it off through that course as we normally would. I'm happy to ask again, but that's currently the answer that we've had.
Actually,
You muted yourself.
that's what I thought, because that's true of our complex in North Dumfries as well.
Okay. Seeing no further questions. Okay, the recommendation moved by Councillor Foxton, second by Councillor Nowak, that the Regional Municipality of Waterloo allocate the 2020 Region of Waterloo Library operating surplus in the amount of $490,011 to the Library Capital Reserve, as outlined in Report COR-CFN-21-17, dated April 6, 2021. All in favor? Use your icons. And that is carried. Thank you very much. Next.
Excuse me, Councillor Armstrong. Matthew Chandy has just joined the meeting. He is connecting to his audio.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Matthew.
Good morning.
Are you here to make a presentation, or are you just interested in what excitement we're doing here?
No, I believe I'm here to give the committee a short update on Smart Waterloo Region and the initiatives with children, youth, and technology.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Helen, you want to introduce, make sure everybody knows what's going on?
Right, so welcome, Matthew. Thank you for joining us today. So as you know, the region has been engaged with Smart Waterloo Region for a number of years, and we have some money now from the Hallman Foundation. We've now hired a new manager for our Smart Waterloo Region program. And ever since the beginning and the inception of this program, the libraries have been seen as playing a really integral role for connecting young people to a variety of programs and providing them with space to be able to do things. So we're looking at how we can continue to keep that momentum going forward, and looking at the role of particularly the rural libraries in understanding how they can make a difference and contribute to the Smart Waterloo Region program. So I'll hand it over to you, Matthew.
Great, thank you, Helen, and thank you, Chair Armstrong and the committee for having me here today. Pleased to be able to give you a short update on the Smart Waterloo Region initiative. As Helen said, there has been some things that have been progressing, which we're excited about. And we wanted to sort of give you a bit of a recap on a little bit of what's been happening and also what we're working towards in 2021. So I'm just going to share my screen with the committee. A few slides I'd like to run through with you. Great, I'm hoping everyone can see that. Great, so again, just a very quick recap on Smart Waterloo Region. So again, the whole challenge was completed now a couple of years ago, summer 2019. And so again, that was a big undertaking for Waterloo Region. You know, it was a partnership between the Region of Waterloo and all 7 area municipalities where we responded to the Government of Canada's Smart Cities Challenge, which was to look at how we can better use technology to overcome community challenges or issues or problems. And so after some fairly significant community consultation and engagement, again, our community landed on child and youth well-being. And at the time, we had some data, particularly coming from the Children and Youth Planning Table of Waterloo Region, that was showing that we were struggling in a few areas. And that, you know, if we, despite having some, you know, strong sectors, for example, like at the time, you know, technology and manufacturing, we were, you know, we are still in many ways a thriving community. And so despite that, the data told us there was going to be some challenges coming our way in the future if we didn't address some of these issues our children and youth were facing. And so together, the community selected this challenge statement, and I'm not going to read it here for you, but we came up with this challenge statement that essentially said that we are going to become the best community in the country for kids. And we were going to do that by leveraging technology, data, by enhancing our service delivery network and bringing our partners together, particularly in the social services sector and in the technology sector. And so at the time, I mentioned some challenges, and these still are very much challenge areas for us. You know, we decided, now these are broad bucket areas, and I'll get into a little bit more about how we plan to dig into these areas. But early childhood development, literacy was more of an issue at the time. Mental and emotional health, sense of belonging. Those were some key areas that some of the data from StatsCan, some of the local data that the Children and Youth Planning Table collected. And again, you know, there's their membership of almost 70 organizations across Waterloo Region that are providing services to children, youth, and families here. But based on that, we saw some challenges in those areas. And we had also partnered with UNICEF Canada on a new national index that they had created to help measure the state of children and youth and exactly how we as a country were doing. And our partnership was based on Waterloo Region creating the first community level. So taking the UNICEF index and then building a local measurement framework at the community level where we could see how we're doing. And through that partnership, we were also able to use some of the data that they had developed through their process and identify where we needed to have a focus. Now, those are broad bucket areas that we're talking about here. And so one of the things that we started to do through the proposal phase was look at the root causes of some of these in these challenge areas, why we were facing these issues. So through the proposal phase, we started to get at and come up with ways to identify what's the root cause, and then our plan was to develop specific solutions to those root causes with the thinking of, if we address those root causes, then we'll start to see improvement in these different areas across Waterloo Region. And with the measurement framework, we would actually be able to measure our progress and then report back on that to the community. So unfortunately, we did not win that Smart Cities Challenge. we did win in many ways in the community. And since the end of the challenge, many community partners have been asking about how we can relaunch Smart Waterloo Region and keep moving forward with the initiative, work towards that challenge statement and goal that the community had set for Waterloo Region. And most importantly, I think, which we found exciting, was many of the youth throughout the region were specifically asking for this too. And I did want to, we're here at the library committee today, so I did want to point out that, many of our youth engagement, we actually ended up doing more youth engagement sessions across our 4 townships than we did in our 3 cities. It's just the way it worked out. But we believe that our challenge statement and the momentum that was created through this process was truly reflective of the youth voice across all 4 townships and the 3 cities. And so youth have continued to reach out and ask how we're moving forward with this, how they can stay involved, how they can ask their friends to come and support this initiative and be involved with the development of projects that can help kids in this community. So with that momentum, we had planned to start or hope to relaunch at the early 2020. One of the great things that happened was one of the key partners, community partners on the project, the Lyle S. Hallman Foundation, was keen on specifically identifying how we as a community can look at various technology and data solutions to support child and youth well-being. And they were a supporter of what we were trying to do as a community through the challenge process. And so the board of the Hallman Foundation actually approved a $1 million grant to the Smart Waterloo Region initiative for its relaunch. And that was primarily to go towards the things that many other partners may not want to pay for example, staffing and some of the administration work and reporting work and some of the costs associated with that. But they also wanted some money to go to things like community engagement. One of the feedback pieces we heard from the Government of Canada was that Waterloo Region had one of the best public engagement processes out of all of the communities in the country. And so that really stood out nationally, but also locally. And the Hallman Foundation wanted some of their funding to go towards that. They also wanted some of the funding to go towards pilot projects. And for case in point, we ran some small technology projects during the proposal phase itself, just to demonstrate what we were hoping to do. And so they wanted us to also, they wanted their funding to go towards some of those projects as well. One of their conditions was that they wanted the region and the area municipalities to continue matching that funding. And so when I say continue, again, during the proposal phase, the Government of Canada gave Waterloo Region a $250,000 grant for the year to help cover the costs of building a proposal. And then that was matched by the region and the area municipalities. So the Hallman Foundation sort of saw themselves as taking that funding or replacing the funding that the Government of Canada provided to the region. The $1 million contribution is provided over a 4-year period. So we are looking at launching the project now, but doing a number of projects over the coming 4 years. As I had mentioned, the project was delayed due to COVID. I think we had the steering committee, which is the region and area municipal CAOs, I think had met the week before the shutdown happened to talk about the relaunch. And we had done an information report at that time, but we had, after the pandemic hit, we decided to hit pause on the relaunch and just like so many other areas, wait to see what was happening. And we are at a time now where we've talked again to partners. We've talked to the Hallman Foundations. We've been in discussions with all of the area municipal partners. The steering committee of CAOs have met as well, and we are ready to relaunch. Despite the pause, I do want to say that we did not, we were not just sort of waiting around. We actually were able to support some areas of child and youth well-being in more of a, what's called an emergency situation when the pandemic first hit. We were able to, for example, leverage our Smart Waterloo region partnerships that we had already established to work with both the school boards in the region to provide connectivity to 1,500 households across Waterloo region and get kids connected to support with e-learning. So that was something that we were able to pull together in about 6 weeks and pull together funding, work with the telecoms and the school boards to come up with a short-term solution to make sure kids, more kids had access to connectivity to then and devices to then participate in their classroom work. So though we did some projects like that, and we did do some continuous engagement through the Children and Youth Planning Table and their ongoing work with kids and families throughout the community. But where we are right now is we are ready to relaunch, and we are ready to relaunch with one of the project components was an innovation lab. And when I say an innovation lab, that was meant to be a place where social services and technology companies could come together to develop specific technology and data-based projects that would address child and youth well-being issues in Waterloo region. And so that was our initial plan, and we now continue to move forward with that. We have received some questions and some input with regards to a number of the projects that we developed during the proposal phase. So during the proposal phase to the Government of Canada, we had developed a list of approximately 50 technology and database projects for children and youth. Some of those projects are no longer relevant. Some of them are very relevant, given that the pandemic has hit, and it's highlighted a number of challenges that are being experienced by kids across Waterloo region. It's telling us that we need to focus our efforts in certain areas. The number one issue from our work and just talking with kids was mental health. And that continues to be a major issue for kids, particularly as, we are experiencing the pandemic and what how that's impacted kids and their ability to socialize with other kids, to participate in learning activities, extracurricular activities. So there's been a lot of challenges that will continue to remain for a while because of the pandemic. One of the things that we are doing, though, is we are looking at what are the new projects that we'll be focusing on in the coming years. And there is a lot of current engagement that's happening right now with community partners. We are again talking to youth about how we want to reframe the project and get input on what are the types of focus areas we should be paying attention to and the type of projects we should be developing. One of the key components of that is the library system. And one of our focus areas was that we were going to look at ensuring that programs available for children and youth in Waterloo region were going to be focused or equally available to kids. Didn't matter what your geography was. So if you lived in a township or city, programming would be available to you. Didn't matter, what your socioeconomic background might be. You would have access to programs. And we saw during the proposal period, we particularly focused on the library system in our townships as being a way where we can integrate more technology and data-based programming and learning for kids as a way to reach those kids. And so we had created a framework called Connected Community Spaces at the time, where we would look at the library system throughout the cities and the townships as a way to make sure there's programming available for kids and equally available for kids. Again, didn't matter where you lived. So that was a main focus of our proposal. And we actually called that focus our flagship project of building connected community spaces, where we would invest in technology and data programming for kids in our library systems. And so that continues to be one of our flagship projects as we move forward. We know that given the library system is a place where we have more direct control as the region and the area municipalities. It's a way for us to reach kids, and it's a way for us to, we have infrastructure in place where we can leverage that to support child and youth programming. So that is really what we're still focusing on right now. We are very much focusing on big data as well. And when I say big data, it's primarily to understand, it goes back to this measurement framework. We continue our partnership with UNICEF Canada. We want to make sure that we are building a framework locally where we can actually measure how we are doing with regards to all of the various programming that's provided by social service organizations through Smart Waterloo Region. What's our impact on kids? We want to be able to clearly articulate that and show that in a measurement framework, and then measure our progress or identify areas where we need to pay more attention. And so that work is also underway, and that's starting, and that's going to be a main focus of this, is creating and collecting data to support this measurement framework. We're also going to be looking at, the prize of the Smart Cities Challenge was a $50 million grant to support project-based work. And unfortunately, not winning that, we're looking at other ways of funding various project-based work. And that is through new types of partnerships with the private sector, local technology companies, or other type of private companies that are interested in supporting various project development work through Smart Waterloo Region. We've had some tech companies offer, for example, they'll say, we'll give you our space, we'll have our coders help you with project development or developing new technologies. We'll have our data experts help you. So there's a lot of things that we're looking at now as new ways to make projects happen here. And it's also great to see, private sector companies coming to the table and willing to look at supporting or funding, helping to fund various types of projects. So that is another area that we are looking at right now, is how we're going to fund and build new projects, but it's going to require some new ways of, or I should say, new types of project partnerships. Whereas before we were hoping that we could rely on a federal grant. Frankly, this approach might be more sustainable in the long run. So I think we're working right now towards May relaunch. And so what that means is we have hired a new Smart Waterloo Region Innovation Lab Manager. And that lab manager is going to be leading a number of the new projects that we are going to be developing with partners. He unfortunately could not be here today, but we'll be having him at a following meeting so that the committee can meet him. We are also going to be hiring 2 other positions, which would be a data position and also a position that would focus on engagement and working directly with youth. So ideally, the lab will have 3 positions, and then we'll also have, we've had, again, a number of project partners offered to volunteer. We've had a number of individuals from various sectors come forward and said they want to volunteer and help with project-based work, whether it's a new app or it's a new data collection method. We plan to leverage a lot of the interest that exists in the community from different sectors in making this project happen. So that's where we're at right now with Smart Waterloo Region. We're excited about being in relaunch stage right now. We are obviously, like everyone, working in a remote relaunch phase right now. We had hoped to do an in-person relaunch in May, but towards the end of May, but right now we're going to have to celebrate a community relaunch remote. And so that is what we're working on right now, and getting the initiative launched with, we're planning to launch with a handful of projects pre-identified. And when we relaunch, we'd like to share that with the community, saying here are priority projects that we're starting right now. And again, that's being determined right now based on conversations we're having with youth, families, social service providers. This was very much a community initiative, and we would like to see it continue that way, where the community is driving, how this project supports kids in the community. And we continue to work with our partner, the Hallman Foundation, who was a generous funder to this project. They had, they understood the challenge we had with the pandemic. So the project timeframe now is actually going to be from 2021 to 2025. So it'll be a 4-year. We're just delaying the start by 1 year, and we're looking forward to getting going. So I'll stop there for the time being, and I can be available for any questions.
Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate that. It was very comprehensive. Councillor Foxton.
Thank you, and through the chair, Matthew, there's been some programs at the North Dumfries Air Library, which have folded because they had little attendance or little people registering. Actually, I was signed up for a couple of those programs and was surprised when they fell through. So there seems to be a disconnect between the library and the public, and drawing people back to our library. I think that's going to be your biggest challenge, not necessarily for the others. I think the others are very successful in their youth programming and that. But within North Dumfries, it is a problem that people no longer really recognize the library. It's sort of there, but not there. And I'm not sure how we bring that to light to people and get it. It's got to become the hub it was meant to be, for it to be successful for you. And so that's what we've all got to work on.
Yeah. And through the chair, no, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, we're very much aware of those types of challenges. One of the things that when we were coming up with the connected community space framework during the challenge phase, one of the things that kids often told us was, I'm going to use Communitech in Kitchener. They thought it was a cool space to be a part of. They didn't exactly know what was going on there. They knew there was a lot of technology. Knew there was a lot of startups happening, and they all wanted to go in there. They didn't exactly know how to, or they were a little afraid to go in just because they were kids, but they knew about that. And so working with kids, we came up with this framework of saying, why can't every library be like that? Why can't every library be a cool place where kids want to go? I mean, I'm using Communitech just because that's a building that has some tech in it, but it can be anywhere. It can be we can turn our library system into these hubs where people, and particularly kids in this case, want to come to, because there's cool programming, there's things that they can be a part of and engaged in. They don't have barriers to doing it. And that is kind of the goal that we want to, that's what we want to achieve for the libraries, and generate that type of interest. And that's not going to happen overnight, but that will happen if we develop the right type of programming that's going to attract kids there. And so we started that during the proposal phase, and we want to work with a lot of the partners in the townships on how to build that type of programming as well, and what it's going to take, because we do know that kids in the rural community have different needs or challenges in even getting to the library, for example, could look totally different. And those are the things we heard during the proposal phase from kids in the townships. They said, we would love to get there. So we need to think about how we structure program differently in the rural libraries, and how it's made accessible. And that, I think, is one of the first things that we're going to have to do as part of the relaunch.
Thank you, Matthew. Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. Thanks, Matthew, for the presentation and some really good ideas there. Similar to what you were just talking about, we had a discussion at council about BIA, and the thing that came up when we talked about the downtown core and getting more people to the downtown core, we started to talk about youth, and it was all about placemaking. They just want a place, right, where they can hang out. But I also know we have a youth drop-in center, and so we've got the library, we've got the drop-in center, we have Village Community Services who provides certain supports and certain programs for youth. And the health center runs some programs, particularly for moms and young kids. So how does this project tie into, I know you talked about reaching out to community groups, but can you be a little more specific in how you're going to tie into some of those existing activities and places and sort of bring it all together?
So we've been primarily through the chair. We've been primarily working through the Children and Youth Planning Table and their whole network of partners, and that does include the townships. So we have been working with existing partners, but also our plan will be to look to work with new partners that might not be engaged with the CYPT or Smart Waterloo Region at this point. I think what we want to do is look at existing programs that exist, and there's definitely going to be programs that we're not aware of, and so we'll reach out to partners and are always willing to talk to more people who are offering programming or services to children and youth, and identify if there's a place for us to work with them. If there's a place for us or an opportunity to apply Smart Waterloo Region supports or programming to what's being done right now. Again, our focus is not to take over existing program. It's meant to accelerate or help enhance the impact of programming that might exist with technology and data, if appropriate. So that is the focus. And what we would do is Smart Waterloo Region does not work in isolation. So we're here to sort of reach out and work with different organizations. So that'll be our goal moving forward, is to reach out, have those conversations. If we haven't talked to them now, we'll look to do that and see what type of programming exists and see if there's a way that we can work together or provide support. And I'd say that's probably where we'll start. Absolutely, this summer.
Thank you. That sounds good. If I could just have a follow-up on that. Can you remind me who's on, and you don't need to give me names exactly, but how is the township represented at the youth planning table?
Oh, at the Children and Youth Planning Table. They do have various organizations in the townships that are part of the, I mentioned that they have, I think, approximately 70 members. And so I know that there are a number of partners from the townships or organizations in the townships that are part of that table. Even if they're not members, I know the CYPT is working with a number of rural organizations on various initiatives as well. So the CYPT is a partner organization for Smart Waterloo Region. So we've been leveraging their network of 70 partners or so. I don't have the complete list in front of me here, but I know that there's a number of townships, and during the proposal period, we were able to actually reach a number of township organizations through the CYPT network.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very important that everybody corroborate because you don't want programs overlapping and creating problems that way. So it's very important that way. Chair Redmond.
Thank you, Chair Strong. Matthew, you kind of alluded to this in one of your answers already, but I think one of the huge strengths of Smart Waterloo Region was that the whole initiative was actually informed by the youth. And I don't know how, I know Sandy certainly had the opportunity, but I was always impressed with the diversity, the leadership, and the absolute pan-regional coverage of the participation. And I go back to one of the things that really stuck in my mind, and you talked about some programs not being relevant and some being even more relevant. And that was when you talked about mental health supports, and kids said, I don't want a phone number for a counselor, I want an app. And I'm just wondering how that's going to continue to roll out given all of the other pressures. I'm assuming that mental health will continue to play a central role in the gaps and the needs of youth.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair, yes, absolutely. So again, we want to make sure that everything that we're building or creating out of Smart Waterloo Region is informed by and driven primarily by youth and then other community stakeholders and partners. And so it was those types of conversations. The example you gave is a very real one, because I'll say this, at one of our engagement sessions, we had a youth member that came up to me, and she said, I struggled to access mental health services. And, we had talked to some, and then one would think that, many social service organizations have open door services, no cost. You can walk in and someone will help you. But the thing we missed was, through the eyes of a youth, that's an extremely daunting experience. And so the youth person said, how am I supposed to get there? I don't have a car. I don't have money to get there. How do I know which building I need to go to? Who do I ask and what do I ask? Do I have privacy? She just started listing everything. She said, and then she held her phone up in front of my face and she said, wouldn't it be nice if I could figure all that out on this phone that I have? And it was just like a light bulb went off, and it said, this is exactly what Smart Waterloo Region can help with, is listening to kids and making sure that the projects are driven and built that actually respond to what kids want, not what adults think kids want, but actually what kids want. And so that's why the Hallman Foundation said that, community engagement is very important, particularly with youth. That will remain a main focus with us. But it will definitely continue to drive the project. We will look to engage youth every step of the way moving forward. It's not going to be a time-limited process. As long as Smart Waterloo Region is around, we will continuously engage youth, through our various networks. During the proposal phase, we had a youth committee. We are looking at how we're going to engage youth, again, moving forward. One of the successes that we had, something we need to continue to always work on, though, is it was to Councillor Redmond's comments that it was very diverse, and we were very lucky that we had representation from the townships. Townships, the cities, all sorts. We had newcomers to Canada. We had representation from the LGBTQ2S+ community. We started to engage Indigenous youth. So we had started to have a great diverse representation of youth. We have a lot of work yet to do on that and continue to do on that, but that is what we're hoping will inform every step of the way forward for Smart Waterloo Region and all the projects that we develop.
And Chair Armstrong, if I can just one final comment. I mean, the silver lining is the fact that this community continues to step up. Still a little bitter that we didn't win that, because we should have. It was the best project, but we will be more sustainable and we will triumph.
I'm sure we will. And your comments and reminds me when I was running a license office, we had these great big huge binders of rules that we had to follow. And every month we got these great big huge bundles of updates. And when you're dealing with youth, it's like a binder that has to be updated every couple of months. So trying to understand them. And we never will, because you're not going to be able to get through all those updates. But we'll eventually get there, and with their help, we will achieve all our goals. Councillor Nowak.
Yes, Matthew, just a few thoughts running through my head now. I haven't got them totally in order, but I'm going to see what I can do with them. I think it was interesting that you talked about the youth in the rural areas having maybe a different feel for the area as the city children. I know there's a number of programs. There seems to be an affinity with the children out here to the natural areas. There's fisher children and hunters and that sort of thing. And I'm wondering if as you're looking for community partners, whether you wouldn't consider government agencies like the Ministry of Natural Resources, for example. They have some fantastic programs that they're initiating. And I referenced the Linwood School, for example, where they actually raise brown trout right in the school and then stock the local rivers. These are the types of things that kids really can get excited about. So I'm wondering if maybe there'd be some funding through natural resources to help you do some of this work. So I'm wondering if that would be an issue that you would consider.
Absolutely. Through the chair, we during the proposal phase, we actually had projects that were outdoor based and connected to nature. And again, that was driven by youth talking about how we can focus more on outdoors. People think technology and data and kids programming, they think inside in front of a computer or phone or something, but really that doesn't need to be the case. And so absolutely open to having those conversations and looking at potential partnership opportunities with those organizations, specifically as it relates to the provincial government. If they exist, we will pursue them. During the proposal phase, we actually had a partnership letter from the Ministry of Education, where they had committed to testing all new education technologies in Waterloo Region before deploying it to other regions across the province. So that's just an example of a partnership we had with one ministry. We'll absolutely look for opportunities at every ministry, provincially or federal departments, doesn't matter what it is. We have actually had some conversations with federal departments as well. So that's absolutely on the table, and we plan to pursue that.
So if I could just add through the chair, you might have a discussion with Mike Harris at some point in time. He's the parliamentary assistant, or I think that's his designation, to the Ministry of Natural Resources. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that'd be something that he would be quite excited about if it was presented to him. At one point in time, you used to be able to, children of certain ages, I think you have to be 16 now, you could buy your fishing and your hunting licenses at the hardware stores and this sort of thing. Well, wouldn't be kind of nice if the library would be able to supply the licenses for hunting and fishing? That would bring a lot of people into the libraries. So I don't know if that's a program that's doable or not, but maybe something that could be pursued. And then if you're going to build programming around, sustainable hunting, sustainable fishing, all that sort of thing in the rural areas, I think that'd be something that the children would get pretty excited about. So just my thoughts for now.
I mean, through the chair, we'll definitely take that back and look at anything where like any type of programming like that, or that we can leverage technology for in some capacity. We'll absolutely do that. But I'll make a note of that, and we'll see what we can do.
Perfect.
Thank you, Matthew, and thanks, Joe. And I'll let you know a warning that the issuing of licensing for fishing and hunting and that is a pretty onerous process. A lot of the when they were doing that in the hardware stores and that, a lot of them were getting pretty upset because the ministry was making it a real onerous chore to issue those licenses. So it's something that it's not a bad idea at all. I agree, but it's can be pretty onerous, and hopefully they've improved the process, which is sometimes not all that likely, but at least maybe they have tried. Councillor Foxton.
Thank you, and through the chair. Yeah, Matthew, just getting back to Councillor Shantz's point and talking about the townships, a lot of times, and again, I'm going to speak for North Dumfries, we don't get involved because we haven't been approached. We hit the bigger agencies, which don't, you have to understand, there's practically no agencies in North Dumfries. So if you've dealt with a lot of agencies, they aren't here. They don't know our municipality, and so they don't know the needs. So when you're talking agencies, you have to first ask, does it include North Dumfries? Because a lot of times it doesn't. So what you're getting, the information you're getting, you may totally, without intent, end up completely dropping North Dumfries out of the loop because they're not involved in these agencies. So just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fox.
We'll do through the chair. I absolutely will make sure that, you know, when we're focusing on Waterloo Region, we are making sure, and we will make sure as we relaunch, that we are looking at each area municipality individually as well. In addition to looking at it as collective, we'll make sure we look at it individually so that we're reaching as many kids as we can.
That's good, and I can always tell you that in Wilmot to talk to township staff, because they're very in tune with all the agencies that are operating especially in Wilmot. So, and something I was going to mention before, that one of those really slim silver linings in the pandemic is referring to what Joe was talking about, and that is that people have more and more got out into nature to take their kids out for walks, and because they nothing else to do, so their families are more interested in nature, and I think that's probably a very small, but at least a thin line of silver in the lining of what's going on. So I know that our trails are getting a lot more use by families than they ever did before. So, okay, I see no further questions. So, thank you, Matthew. Appreciate your attendance and updating us, and we'll hope to see great things in the future.
Thanks to the committee. Thank you.
So, Cheryl, I guess you're going to do an update on operations.
Yes, thank you, Chair Armstrong. I have an operations update and the report on library statistics, which is more of the majority of that report is looking at comparators for 2015 to 2019. But if we would like to look at the operations update, it's been, well, needless to say, a fascinating year. But with challenges comes opportunities, and I'm a strong believer in that. And if nothing else, 2020 and 2021 has given the library a chance to pivot. And when I think of some of the comments that came out of Matthew's presentation and some of the questions posed by various mayors and observations, dead on was the comment about it's not what we think youth want, it's what youth really want, and that ability to plug in and change and pivot. And I believe 2020 and 2021 has given us that ability to remake from the traditional to the forward thinking. So if you would like, I could share my screen. So for the operations update, we did have quite a number of changes to report. Mainly, of course, our operations were influenced by what the provincial government was doing and what the region was doing in terms of keeping everybody safe, in terms of keeping the public, as well as staffing safe, and our responses. It was quite exciting to note, if I can pull out one highlight, that our active card holders showed a very good response. Even though we did have pandemic restrictions and limited building and resource access. But due to our increased social media presence and our user-focused curation of e-resources, we attracted almost as many new cardholders in 2020 as we did in 2016, when our doors were open all year. And that really does reflect, as I said here, to our increase in social media presence. We went where the people were in terms of social media, and we presented them with items they wanted with our electronic resources, and that just paid off dividends with an increase in active card holders. We also made it easier for people to get cards online, which again brought in more active card holders. Physical versus digital, as to be expected, because our doors were closed part of the year, our physical circulation was not as great as it could have been. When you look at the statistics report, it does speak to the decrease in physical circulation. But interestingly, people were still interested in print, and that spoke loud and clear when you look at the figures in Appendix A, that as soon as our doors were open to the public or we resumed with library takeout, which allowed people to pick up their physical print items at the door, the numbers went up. So what we saw throughout 2020 was a steady use of electronic resources and a definite increase in preference and pivot back to print resources when our doors were open and allowed that to occur. And of course, public service hours, we had through 2020 fewer public service hours, but we're calling them compressed hours. And we've noticed that with the compressed hours, people are moving to those compressed hours. They're taking advantage of those compressed hours. And so what were popular times became incredibly popular times with these compressed hours. And as we look toward recovery, vaccinations coming online, with being able to hopefully open up our doors a little bit more and resume service eventually to Breslau and Clyde, we look to increasing that circulation even more. So with the COVID-19 status changes, we've adapted our services based on as the regulations changed. So in November, we were moved into the red zone, which meant we were severely limited to the number of people we could have in our buildings. This is when we learned that presence and community hubs and being able to be present in our buildings was so important to people. It's not just the resources they can check out online. It's not just the resources they can pick up at our front door. It's actually being able to be in our buildings, as we've done a really good job of creating community space. But because we were limited to the number of people for safety reasons due to the pandemic, we did notice that circulation went down. So in December, we of course moved into shutdown, so people were no longer allowed into buildings. We did continue to provide library takeout service at the door, and of course the free 24/7 Wi-Fi. Anytime you drive by any of our buildings, you typically would see at least one person outside taking advantage of the Wi-Fi. And then in February, we moved back into the red zone with slightly altered regulations, which allowed us to allow indoor library takeout, so people could actually come into the building. And anybody who was using our public access computers were asked to create the active health screen, of course. And we shortened our quarantine timelines, meaning a faster turnaround of library resources. So we're also looking at launching Click and Collect, which is a new twist on library takeout through an online mobile app where people can say, I'll be at the library in 1 hour or 15 minutes or whatever, and that actually acts as your appointment, so we can prepare your items that you've put on hold that are ready to pick up, so they're ready just in time for you. It actually maximizes the number of people that can use our library takeout system. Fines, because the doors have been open, shut, and everything in between, we've been unable to collect fines. But what we've noticed, interestingly enough, is that people are still returning their items on time. This has always been a traditional argument in support of library fines. We must fine people so they understand they needed to return their items on time. And we found that people continue to return their items on time. People would get nervous and worried if the library branches were closed for provincial reasons. Can I still return my items? That was one of the #1 questions we had. Of course you may. And people have been excellent with returning their items on time. Virtual programs, again, we've pivoted to a virtual world. This is that brave new world of the future. And we're finding that we're now virtually present in homes across the region using a variety of platforms, everything from Zoom to YouTube to Facebook, which has actually increased our presence and our ability to offer programs. We're no longer limited by physical space. Social media outreach has increased tremendously. Once again, this speaks to going to where the people are, getting out of our buildings in a very, very real way in terms of communication. And the uptake with social media has been tremendous. It's brought people to our virtual programs. It's brought people to our membership, actually. And so seeing the reaction that the community has had to our social media outreach, we're looking at Young Canada Works grant that will cover up to 85% of the cost for a part-time temporary communications intern, to again continue that momentum that has started with our social media presence and continue that forward on a temporary internship basis. And as I said, funded up to 85% by the federal government to hopefully increase our social media and our ability to reach the community. We've enhanced our collections by offering new, different, and exciting items. Again, we want to offer people what they want, where they want it. We've got our Ontario Parks permits coming out. I know there's been a lot of chat around getting outside, and you're absolutely right. With this pandemic has made people realize how much we appreciate the great outdoors. And so we as the library are supporting that love of the great outdoors. We now have available Ontario Parks permits coming online soon. Will be GRCA permits. Pair that with our pedometer kits to encourage people to get outside and walk. We're also adding other new kits that we think will resonate well with our rural communities and our rural interests, canning, knitting, word carving, etc. So again, offering non-traditional items to bring in and perhaps attract those people who were not attracted to the library previously because there was that assumption of just traditional resources available. We're moving to the non-traditional as well. So we've also, library staff and cultural services staff actually have been helping to support the immunization and vaccination rollout. We've done some amazing work. Our library staff have been phoning people to sign them up, the pre-registered people, to sign them up for their vaccination appointments. And we're also supporting the region in a few other parts of that initiative with educational videos, online training, how people can sign up for their vaccination. So we're finding that as a trusted information resource with skilled staff, we are an asset not only to the region, but to our township people, getting the word out about the immunization. We're collaborating with other libraries, which gives us a greater voice to work with the city libraries to bring programs that are not just for city libraries, but out into the townships, such as Every Kid a Card, 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten, The Forest of Reading, One Book, One Community. So we're taking these programs and adding our voice to bring what could be just city-centric out to all the townships so all the rural people can enjoy. And of course, collaboration with township staff. I have nothing but good to say about all of the township staff that we work with on a regular basis. And by the libraries working together with the township staff, that just makes whatever programs we present so much more grounded in the townships and so much better when we can work with the townships to present these programs together. Such as Canada Day, working with Woolwich Township for a Canada Day celebration last year, the Family Maker Challenge for 2021 Family Day virtual celebration, again, working with all 4 townships in a very collaborative way to get the word out. So that was the operations report in a nutshell, although I'll just, if I may point out, just briefly, I had talked about social media and the impact it's made. You can see our total new members increase, Facebook engagements and Twitter engagements, and you can see as our reach becomes greater in the community through social media, you can see that there has been a very positive impact in the people we are able to attract. And as well, the impact on print circulation as we've gone through various stages in response to the pandemic, whether our doors are open, closed with library takeout. Our doors were still closed at the beginning. People could start to enjoy the print items. And then when our doors opened through Borrow and Go, people could come into the libraries to take out print. And then when we actually went back into library takeout with the doors closed, people were still able to enjoy the print resources. So that's the operations report in a nutshell. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you. Councillor Nowak.
Good. Yes, good report. It's nice to see so many initiatives moving forward. A couple things that I I would just maybe suggest or run across trees. Trees are a pretty big issue now in the rural areas, a huge issue. As a matter of fact, Wilmot has a fledgling planting tree group. Woolwich has a huge planting tree group. Wellesley Township, we're handing out 1,200 trees a year to residents free of charge. Well, it's sort of free of charge. There's a way around that. But and then Reap Green Solutions. I wonder if you would, if you were ever thought of connecting with them and bringing them on board, because they offer a tree planting program as well. So I think the whole idea of trees, the history of trees, you know, there's a ministry up in Sault Ste. Marie that actually they grow trees that are in danger of being, you know, not available anymore. So there's a lot of information on trees, and I'm just wondering if that would be a program. The other thing I was just going to mention briefly is June is the pollinator month. I think there's a week in June which it's designated for pollinators, and I'm wondering if the Ministry of Agriculture would have some information for you on that to help promote that whole concept in the rural areas. I mean, that's our way of giving the farming community if we can help with their crops in one way or another. Wellesley's a bee city or a bee community. The region is now. Blue and Kitchener, I believe, have also or they were initiated it actually. So anyway, those are just some thoughts I had that maybe might be worth pursuing.
Yeah, I think staff are probably willing to go out on a limb for that, Joe.
Yes.
Thanks, Les.
Councillor Schatz.
Yeah, thanks. Just to add to what Joe said about the trees for Woolwich is also planting a number of they have a nursery, and so they are planting a number of trees that are indigenous to this area, but are maybe I think they've got a type of elm that has survived the Dutch elm disease that they're planting. So they've got quite a number in there. Also putting together a 5-acre, this is just for information, a 5-acre parcel with, I think there's 5 different sort of ecologies in it that is pretty interesting. I just can't recall what they've called it. But so just for your info.
Thank you.
Joe?
Yeah, just one more thing quickly. Reading the region's official plan, and you know they're having an eye to environmental issues in that official plan, and one of the things that they're proposing is to increase the tree canopy in the region by as much as 30% over the next number of years. And what a great opportunity to I think to get the Indigenous community involved in a program like that I mean, because they understand the value of the trees, I think, more than a lot of people. So just another thought.
Thank you. No further questions or comments? Did you have anything to wrap up with, Cheryl, or?
I would just simply say that with all the challenges we've been faced with, we've also enjoyed great opportunities that have come as a result of the challenges. I believe when we look at what library services were traditionally, I believe we've done an excellent job of holding on to the traditional, understanding and recognizing that people love their print. There is no doubt about that. But COVID has given us an excellent springboard to move forward into new and exciting paths, whether it's the online virtual programs or whether it's the ability to get out into the community in new and unique ways. And I believe that it's shown in a very special way the continued support of our community. If nothing else, I just want to point out that having living in the townships, I am approached on a regular basis at the grocery store, at Shoppers, whatever, by people who say, thank goodness for the library. During these hard times, we've been able to get our books, we've been able to download items online and look at our magazines. Thank goodness for the libraries. And I just want to say thank goodness for all the people in the townships that use the library service and can say that and continue to support us. So perhaps that was a little bit over the top, but it's been such a positive response from the community during these trying times. And I just want to say thank you for that.
Well, we certainly want to say thank you to you and your staff, and we appreciate, because you know, new initiatives lead to new traditions, and traditions are always good to fall back on. So thank you. Helen, you have something to add?
Yeah, there's just two things. One, I think I just want to say thank you very much for the hints and tips about partnerships, because that's one of the things the library staff is really working very hard on, is building those partnerships and recognizing that we don't need to be the experts in everything, because we have a community of experts out there, and being able to draw on that expertise to deliver new and innovative programming is another thing. But also recognizing that the library is one of the few areas as far as a municipal service that is actually, every time these regulation changes happen, the library is actually written out there in the regulation about how it impacts what we do. The museums is the other one. So the yo-yoing effect on the library staff is more significant than I think it is for many of our colleagues across the region. And I really want to recognize the toll that takes on the staff, but B, their ability to be resilient and respond each time they have to open and close. And they have, found innovative ways of connecting with the community and really demonstrated. And that piece about social media and that openness that we've created there and that conversation that it's created with the community, I think is certainly worth acknowledging as well. So those are my 2 cents that I just wanted to add in there.
Well, we always like to think that there's nothing more important than experts sharing their ideas. And that includes cross-pollinating them. So, thank you. Okay, so those 2 reports from Cheryl are for information. Is there any other business that members want to bring forward? And seeing none, so if there's no other business, we will adjourn the meeting. So we're not asking for but I will ask for an adjournment, and that will be moved by Councillor Foxton, seconded by Councillor Shantz. All in favor? Perfect. We are now adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.